Hey everyone, so One Piece chapter 1071 just came out, and this was a phenomenal chapter to end 2022 with, giving us a fantastic array of battlegrounds to begin 2023 with in chapter 1072. Because on one hand, we've got Luffy and the Straw Hats versus CP0, the Seraphim, Kizaru, and whatever marines he has assembling with him. Then on the other hand, we've got Garp, Helme Poe, maybe a few assorted marines thrown in there like Smoker and Tashigi if we're lucky, going up against the Blackbeard pirates, likely involving Kobe, Law, maybe Pudding, God knows who else. And then we've even got Kuma attacking the Red Line, attacking Marijua. We don't know where that's gonna go. We've got a fantastic set of multiple scenes being set up right here. So I'm very, very excited for the start of One Piece in 2023. I really do think we're entering the most exciting phase of One Piece that we will ever have in the story. Now, on that note, if you enjoy One Piece, if you also enjoy Chainsaw Man, Hunter x Hunter, JoJo's Bizarre Adventures, Jujutsu Kaisen, any of these other series, and you want to hear my analysis and breakdown of other manga, then definitely check out my new channel, Manga Morge, that just launched a few days ago, especially if you like Chainsaw Man, because I just dropped a 40-minute Chainsaw Man analysis that I think is one of the best videos I've ever made, that covers aspects of the series that I think I've not seen a single other person talking about, so definitely check that out when you get the chance. Now, talking about One Piece chapter 1071. So, let's talk about Lucci first, because Lucci said something in this chapter that I thought was very important and might go to something very important that comes out as the outcome of this arc, which is Lucci does not acknowledge Luffy as a Yonko. This is something I talked about much earlier, I think as the arc of Egghead Island began, that I don't feel as though, we know Luffy's a Yonko, he's got the title of Yonko in his name, but I never felt as though Luffy was actually, I never felt the weight of Luffy finally having that title to his name, that long-awaited title of Yonko, the highest tier of pirate you can become, just short of Pirate King. I never felt the weight behind it because other characters did not treat it with that weight. And of course, lots of people in comments, etc. would say things like, what are you talking about? He's a Yonko. Of course, people respect him. Yonko is Yonko. Like, no. There's a very big difference between Shanks the Yonko and the respect he is treated with, where he can walk in and end the Marineford War, where he can waltz into Marijua wherever he wants, where he can show up a good mile and a half away from an island like Wano and send a Marine Admiral running away. There's a huge world of difference between the respect that a true Yonko, like Shanks, is treated with, versus whatever Luffy has been treated as so far. Because the reality is, Luffy has not been getting the respect of Yonko, which is why I don't yet quite feel, the weight, the magnitude, the hype behind his status as Yonko. It began with him having his bounty split up to be equally, credited among himself, Kid, and Law. Goes to show that the world is trying to spin it as whatever Luffy did in Wano, it was no more significant than what Kid and Law did, right? It continued with Green Bull explicitly saying that he would not show up to Wano if Kaido was there. He ran away from Wano as soon as Shanks showed up, but he made it very clear that he did not fear Luffy and was 100% certain that he could capture Luffy and the Straw Hats. Luffy meets Jewelry Bonnie, his fellow Supernova, who makes clear that, hey, she's shocked that Luffy's a Yonko at all. She literally can't believe it. You have Rob Lucci showing up, who says, explicitly word for word, he does not consider Luffy a true Yonko. Really, the only significant character in the story that actually kind of gives Luffy the respect of Yonko, in that, like, hey, we're not supposed to mess with him, is Akainu. And that doesn't mean much because Akainu, as we've slowly learned about him, turns out to be quite the by-the-book, strict, pencil-pushing dude, which means that he's just gonna follow the rules. We don't even know what level of respect Akainu has for Luffy in his head. He just knows Luffy's technically a Yonko, so we're just technically not gonna mess with him. But as far as we've seen, Luffy is not walking around the New World getting the respect of Yonko that other characters who are Yonko, such as Shanks, such as I assume Blackbeard, tend to get. Now, why do I think that's so important for this arc? Well, as I talked about in a very recent video, I think the video that just came out before this one, that the war against the world government has begun, what's so interesting about Egghead Island is that this is the first arc that the world government really is going to have to contend with how strong Luffy and the Straw Hats have become. Because in Wano, it was a closed-off nation. The world government really doesn't know the full details of what Luffy did there, what went down there, right? This is the first time that Luffy is going straight up against them, in their face, taking away their most valuable possession that they've sentenced to death, Vegapunk, and he's going to get past CP0, the Seraphim, their ultimate weapons, and likely a Marine Admiral. I don't know how those fights are going to shake out. It does seem as though we're set up to get fights, because it was explicitly stated in this chapter that they don't think that they're going to be able to escape without a fight. But no matter how you spin it, this chapter, the way that this chapter ended, and the series of events that it seems set to have unravel, they all seem to point to Luffy basically making a huge, I guess, striking a huge blow against the world government in a way that they definitely didn't expect before this, and that will force them to have to put some degree of respect on his name going forward. Now, at the same time, Lucci probably did not give Luffy the respect of Yonko because Lucci's just salty that he got beat up. So that's its own discussion, right? There is a bit of personal bias there, but the fact is it has been a trend so far. And it does seem as though this arc is set up to be the one that really undeniably sets up Luffy as somebody that the world cannot ignore any further, as being one of the top tier, strongest, and most formidable pirates, period, that the world government really can't just casually take out with CP0, with Seraphims, with a Marine Admiral, or something like that. So I'm very excited for how the rest of this arc is going to play out, and the respect that will be put on Luffy's name by the end of this. Luffy and the Straw Hats aside, we of course have three very interesting developments. We have Kuma being sent to the Red Line. I don't know where that's going to go, so I'm actually not going to speak on that much. But an interesting possibility that somebody in my stream mentioned was that the person that Vegapunk may have called upon to help may have been, okay, follow me here, right? It's possible that, as we've seen, Vegapunk is very capable of manipulating consciousnesses, transplanting brains, etc., transplanting, thoughts, whatever. He's got his own consciousness split amongst 6-7 different bodies, not to mention Punk records. It is very possible that Kuma's mind was not completely erased, but rather it was moved perhaps into a different body, perhaps a body that may be waiting on Egghead Island itself. Vegapunk's one ally that he may be referring to. That might be why he's being so mysterious and vague about his discussion with Bonnie as to what happened to Kuma. I don't know. It's interesting, but maybe the person that Vegapunk called upon for help was the true Kuma that's in a different body. Interesting theory somebody from stream dropped. And that means that the Kuma that is currently attacking the Red Line is doing so on some sort of autopilot mode or something like that. That whole trend, that whole little plot line, that's something that we can only really very vaguely speculate on, but it's an interesting idea. Now, Garp. That's the most interesting part of this chapter, right? What is going to happen? Because I was talking about this for a good while, which is why is Egghead Island so close to a marine base, which is so close to the Blackbeard Pirates base. I don't know if these two plot lines between Luffy and Garp are going to collide or intersect, or if Oda just likes the proximity so that they kind of overlap in the softest ways possible, but it's just gonna be two separate things happening at the same time, kind of like Law fighting Blackbeard while the Straw Hats first arrived at Egghead Island. I don't know, but the potential to come out of this storyline is amazing because, one, I think it's possible. I don't think Garp's gonna die. Sorry if I'm jumping ahead of myself here, but I don't think Garp's going to die. I think I'm at a point in One Piece where I'm going to be very, 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 very conservative in terms of any death predictions. I think that Blackbeard killing Shanks is significant enough. I don't know if Oda's going to go the route of Blackbeard killing off all these characters, Shanks, Garp, Usopp, whoever you want to throw in. I think Shanks is the guy I've got penciled in for Blackbeard, definitely. Anybody else will require great, great scrutiny. I don't imagine Oda just killing Garp out of the blue, considering the tremendous amount of buildup and setup he had to go through to kill off Ace and Whitebeard. Even Pedro had many chapters of establishing setup that this was what he viewed as his final voyage. He only had so long to live. He'd shaved off most of his lifespan. He was willing to do whatever it took to sacrifice whatever it took to make sure that the Straw Hats would be able to move on, to bring the dawn of the world, etc. So I don't think Oda just throws in deaths just like that, unless it's for very minor characters like the Scabbards that like Izzo or something like that, where Oda just wrote him off in some side panel that we never really got to fully examine, right? Garp is not an Izzo type character. Garp falls into the category of Aces and Whitebeards. I really can't imagine Oda just killing Garp off in the next 10 chapters out of the blue. Maybe I'm wrong, in which case I would love to be wrong in that sense. I would love to see One Piece surprise me in terms of making a bold storytelling decision like that. I just don't think it's going to happen. That being said, the interesting things that could happen if Garp and Blackbeard do meet is that Garp is the last significant remaining survivor of the God Valley incident, right? The key components being Rocks, Garp, Roger, and obviously Kaido, Big Mom, Whitebeard to a degree, right? Garp is the last significant remaining piece of that could directly talk to and address Blackbeard and inform us in some sense of, or at least give a hint to us in some sense of what happened during that incident that's being kept under wraps. Rayleigh was of course also there, but we got the Rayleigh-Blackbeard interaction and nothing came of it. Garp was a more pivotal central figure that Oda wrote the God Valley incident around. It sounded like he was the third most important figure involved there. And it sounds like he has great insight into why Roger did the things he did. Therefore, I'm way more excited to see what happens if Garp and Blackbeard meet. Because, of course, they met during Marineford War, but in this context, it would be Blackbeard as a Yonko who has taken up residence at the island that the Rocks Pirates used to reside on, right? He has taken up the mantle of Rocks, in a sense, right? His ship is even called the Saber of Zebek. He is following more clearly in Rocks' footsteps. It would be a very interesting scenario to see Garp roll up on the hideout of the most infamous pirate that he ever, I guess, built his legend around taking down, right? Rox, right? But now replaced with Blackbeard, his successor. So I would love to see if we get some info from that. Law might also be trapped there, in which case we could have some fireworks fly there. Aokiji and Garp meeting up again. That's something that somebody brought up from stream. That would lead to some very, very interesting interactions based on where Aokiji is at and Garp is at. So just the idea, this is why I love where One Piece is at right now. So many things. Who had Garp showing up to go to Beehive Island? I don't think anybody had that, but the moment you think about it and the potential it has in terms of certain interactions, obviously Garp Kobe, but Garp Aokiji, and of course Garp Blackbeard with the implications as to the God Valley incident, it makes so much sense that this would be a character that could be involved in an encounter with the Blackbeard pirates right now. That would be amazing. Law is his own story, right? Don't know how he plays into all this, but that's, yet to be seen. So, Garp stuff amazing. Kid, Elbaf, look, it's Kid. I'm going to try and look at Kid with a clean slate. It's a new year. Hopefully he surprises us with some great stuff in Elbaf. It's interesting to see that Kid is going to be the next pirate on a collision course with Luffy. Maybe Kid's gotten stronger in some way. Maybe he picks up something from Elbaf, but it's going to be hard to believe Kid as a decent rival to Yonko Luffy should the two. I assume the two will meet at Elbaf, right? It's kind of even just the manner in which Kid is kind of seemingly a little bit worried and concerned to be at Elbaf. It just doesn't make him look good in light of everything else. Not that Kid's not strong or whatever. It's just, you guys know how most of us feel about Kid. The one thing that I will say is interesting that I like is that Kid mentioned that there's no island that he's afraid to explore or doesn't want to explore. It is Luffy-like in that sense. I like that he has a very similar spirit to Luffy. I just wish that it could manifest in more impressive ways, if that makes any sense. So cool to see Kid showing up there. I would love to see Kid and Luffy in a more serious sort of confrontation than, the alliance that they sort of had, the makeshift alliance they had in Wano. I do still believe that Shanks will be a key component of Elbaf, so that makes a lot of sense there as well, with Kid's storyline having initially been set up around Shanks, getting revenge on Shanks. The whole Wano thing was really just a detour, as Kid's initial goal was to go after Shanks. And now he still wants to find the man with Marked by Flames, so his priorities are a bit messy, but let's not forget, man Marked by Flames and Shanks, those are two things that are likely going to be set up and knocked out right here in Elbaf, so a lot of things potentially connecting. So really like the chapter. The one thing I will say I particularly did not care for is the fact that we're already working with our Straw Hat cast of 10 characters, and now we're having 7 characters, 7 Vegapunks being added all on board the ship, plus Bonnie most likely, so we got 18 characters on the ship. I was really, really loving the narrower focus of characters that we were kind of shifting towards, it felt like to me, on Egghead Island, but at this point, let's see how all of these Vegapunks, add to the story, but at the end of the day, I really just felt like we needed the one. I was hoping that the minds could kind of connect. I'm sure the minds will connect at some point, as that was foreshadowed, but please be sooner than later, because I really, really do think that that is the one single thing that is probably holding One Piece back the most from maybe where it used to be for me in previous arcs, which is just characters for character's sake. I get that it adds a few more gags here and there, but already the panels are very, very tight together. There's a lot going on in them. We get less time for more meaningful, drawn out interactions, etc., and much less time to focus on the Straw Hats, who are our main characters and who I should think we prefer more than, like, let's say body number 6 of Vegapunk or something like that, right? So that's my one thing. I much preferred the isolated interactions of the main Vegapunk and the Straw Hats. Bonnie and the Straw Hats. I personally am not looking forward to seeing 6 talking heads bouncing off all sorts of stuff with like random minor gags, etc. in the background, and that taking up good chunks of the chapter that could have gone towards maybe more tight, drawn out, again, I use the word meaningful interactions, as I preferred in maybe the older days of One Piece, where there were just fewer Straw Hats to go around and the ship was less inundated with different dialogue boxes and stuff of lots of just basically filler chatter, if that makes sense. So that's the one thing that I'm not the happiest about from this chapter, but overall, are we set up for an amazing start to 2023 and probably kicking off the biggest battle royale in manga history? I think so. So that's all for this video. Definitely check out the Chainsaw Man analysis video if you enjoyed Chainsaw Man. The link is in the description below. And if you enjoyed this video, then like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll talk to you all next week.